Welcome to Christmas 2020, now just over the horizon. We certainly live in momentous times. The times when my mental images of Christmas were formed were momentous too. Each of us, of course, will have different locating memories according to their age. Mine was the Great Depression and the Second World War. Years marked by increasing austerity, diminishing food supplies, and rising levels of danger. Years when our parents were very careful to keep my sisters and me with a sense of security. They did direct our attention to the centrality of Jesus in our lives. But I have to confess that what remains to me from those years is a place of glowing safety and plenty in a time of increasing risk and austerity. A place in which you could forget what was going on outside and focus on food and family and the candlelit crib and the tree round which we sang our carols. It was the security and the plenty which became the hallmark of that season for me. It took me a long time to realize how misleading that was. Difficult to do in the face of the strenuous global chorus of commercial interests promoting a consumer society. After the war, they exploited the pagan German myth of the tree and the pagan British tradition of the mistletoe and the Christian Low Country's legend of Santa Claus, with the Christian bit somehow forgotten very quickly. And then there was our own Victorian romanticized views of rather cramped almshouses and rather puffed up robins sitting on the handles of forks and spades. And all this was very good for trade and promoted a compelling expectation of indulgence of each other and of ourselves. Let's look at for a moment at the context of the event which we are now celebrating. It took place in a small country, occupied and oppressed by the troops of an enormous foreign power. The distance from Nazareth to Bethlehem by the roads of that time was 90 miles, 90 truly bone-shaking miles if your transport was a donkey. Mary was beginning labor as she arrived there. We know not what she lay on for the delivery, but Jesus was wrapped in a cloth, or several cloths, and put on a hay rack. The sublime upside-downness of what God was beginning to do is beginning to show. And so that went on with the next thing which happened. If you choose, you can identify this child as being the emissary of, or the representative of, the creator and ruler of the universe. And you can do that because that's who he was. And to whom would you expect such an emissary or representative to present their credentials as the ambassadors now flocking to this country in peacetime and in war present theirs to the Queen? You would think at least King Herod, and so wrong you would be, a puppet king with a questionable title to the throne of a puny country. Certainly not, far too humble. Caesar Augustus alone, emperor of the known world, surely. But to whom actually were they sent? Not the powerful, not the wealthy, not the well-regarded, but a bunch of professional rough sleepers, insanitary folk of necessity, not welcome in good society. Is this the end of the social scale that God really cares about? You'll find the answer in the gospel story. Somebody at the door, sorry. In the gospel story of his mortal life. It's not an entirely comfortable one, I warn you. And it is one of the paradoxes within the center of the central paradox, which we should now search for. One of the things that intrigues me, by the way, about this whole episode is, what on earth was it that the Magi, the three wise men, knew about this baby? What was it that made them not only follow the star, but worship him when they found him and give him those costly and highly significant presents? Certainly their expectation of his succession to such an insignificant kingdom could not have dragged them so far or justified those gifts. What led them actually to worship that baby? Did they already realize the immense importance of people and the immense unimportance of wealth, power, and social position in the eternal scale of things, both then and now? We need to look again at this baby with no proper bed to lie on and remind ourselves of who he is. You will hear it clearly put in tomorrow's gospel. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him. Without him was not anything made that was made. And in verse 14, this word is identified as Jesus. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And the rest of the gospel is his story. What the shepherds bear witness to is the entry into the world of the world's creator, their creator, our creator. The origin of all power, utterly powerless. And now we are on the trail of the central paradox we're seeking. At this point, I fear I have to distress or offend some of you, particularly if you still share that cozy idea of what Christmas is that I brought with me out of the years of shortage and war and danger. You see, I don't think we can truly understand the significance of the baby Jesus, whom we're looking at in his non-cradle, unless we understand at least one aspect of Jesus on his non-throne, the cross. It will help us if we remember what he said to St. Paul when, for the third time, Paul asked him for a cure to what he used to call his thorn in the flesh. What Jesus said was, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made powerful in weakness. My power is made perfect in weakness." That perfectly expresses the paradox we are looking for. The moment of his absolute weakness, the moment of his utter weakness, when he surrendered life itself, was the moment to which he had been deliberately moving for the whole of his ministry. He'd spent quite a lot of time trying to explain this to the disciples, and it was too big for them to get hold of until St. Peter grasped it and immediately said, no, you can't do that. I got the most terrific rocket for saying that. You see, this was Jesus' most absolute expression of love, and an absolute triumph, because it was the deed by which he ensured his resurrection and defeated death itself. The moment of his absolute weakness was the moment of his absolute power, because love is the source of all power in the universe. He started his life in absolute weakness, and he finished it in absolute weakness as regards his mortal self. The immediate result of this use of power in our lives, as in his, may be deeply painful and apparently useless even counterproductive. But in the end, it will be that, and that alone, that brings in the kingdom. Remember him saying, love your enemies, Do good to them that despitefully use you. That is love at work. It is what this baby came to teach us. It takes discipline until, if ever, it becomes our instinctive default response. Mother Teresa put it like this: people are unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish and ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you're honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years on building, someone may destroy overnight. Build anyway. The good you do today, people may forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you've got anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it's between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Remember Jesus pointed out to Pilate that his father could, if he wanted, deploy 12 legions of angels to fix the Roman army occupying Jerusalem. Perhaps now you see why he left them in the barracks. Perhaps why we see it. His inactions, like his actions, flow always from love. And in the end, in the very end, the victory that matters above all others, goes to love. For us, because we are trapped in time. It lies in the future. But even now, it is very real and very sure. When the days are dark and grim, and the future fearful, as now they are, remember that, and remember it especially tomorrow. For we are called to partake of that victory and to enter that kingdom of inexpressible joy and fulfillment, which has been opened to us by God's love for us, expressed in Jesus' astonishing courage and love in being born and living and dying for us. So to summarize the significance of this little child, all that is latent and implicit in him, of all of which he will be fully cognizant at his baptism, is quite simply beyond me. And it's beyond anybody else also, by definition. Our creation, preservation, and salvation are all here, and that is only the beginning. To try to put things in scale, it helps to remember one sentence from the last prayer that Jesus uttered to his Father on the way to Gethsemane. Now, Father, glorify me in your presence. And listen to this. With the glory I had with you before the world began. Here, indeed, in this non-cradle, on this bunch of hay, is the Alpha and the Omega of all time and beyond, and he loves us. Oh, joy! Does not that call forth worship as well as love? For whatever reason those three wise men came, they got it right. Let us join them with hearts overflowing to greet and love this little child who means everything to us. Amen.